and you're tuning into a very special interview edition. Now, I, as a young girl, and I'm sure many of us out there, have always wondered about the glamours of the life of royalty. Today, we just might get some answers through a very special guest hailing all the way from the United Kingdom. So let's take a peek at who that might be in the following.
Less than 2 days after arriving here, Prince, Princess and Baby Prince emerged to the cheers of the crowd.
William Wales.
I think we all were starstruck. Everyone was trying to, not show it too much for his sake.
I'm incredibly proud to be amongst such rich guys, and I'm very privileged to be flying with some of the best pilots, I think, in the world.
The people cheered as the newlyweds emerged, holding hands outside Westminster Abbey.
It's innovation, it's community-led initiatives. So I was very, very pleased that there was an organisation like Tusk.
So as you may have guessed from our introduction clip, our very special guest today, please welcome His Royal Highness, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge. Hello, Your Royal Highness. Yes, nice to see you. Please have a seat. Thank you very much for joining us here on our show today, Your Royal Highness. First of all, I would like to welcome you to Vietnam.
Thank you.
Yes, how has it been, your trip to Vietnam so far?
It's been fantastic. It's been a very warm welcome. I was been waiting a long time to come to Vietnam.
What is your impression of the Vietnamese people so far?
Very friendly, very fun, enjoy a sense of humour, it's good. And some very intelligent minds as well, very inquisitive, which is always good. To be honest, I didn't know an awful lot about Vietnam before. Coming on the trip allowed me to read up and understand a bit more of the history that Vietnam's been through. And I was amazed by its varied history and what's been happening. And it's amazing that the development and the change in progression and modernization that's gone on in the last 20 years, business-wise particularly, is very impressive.
Now, one of the main reasons you're here is to, for the cause of wildlife protection. Can you please share with us what inspired you to be interested in wildlife in the first place?
That's a very big question. So my family have always had a very close affinity to conservation, particularly, and to the natural world. My grandfather was president of WWF for many years. And my father was heavily involved in climate change long before it was fashionable. He saw the plights and the pitfalls that were fast approaching for our generation. I've always listened and learnt from them and other very key people in my life who have steered me or shown me the importance of the natural world and the environment and conservation. So although I had it in me from a very young age, there's been a lot of encouragement and sort of generally when it's all around you, as many people will know from a family business point of view, when it's all around you, you do tend to be more interested and it sort of develops over time.
Do you remember your first kind of real-life encounter with wildlife?
My first encounter was probably in Australia when I was a tiny little baby. And my father nicknamed me Wombat from that age because I started crawling in Australia. And I remember I saw a wombat and I started crawling alongside them in Australia. So that's where that sort of developed from. That's my earliest, not my earliest memory, but the sort of closest connection with wildlife from then. But my biggest, most fundamental point was spending time in Kenya.
Yes.
After school, I went to Kenya and I spent a time learning and understanding and working on a conservation or conservancy there. And we did things, mundane things like building fire breaks so that the wildfires didn't take over in the dry season. We built hides for people to go and watch the wildlife.
Yes.
And when you've got 30 local Africans who don't speak any English, and you're trying to use the best bit of Swahili or local language you can.
Body language.
Yeah, a lot of body language, a lot of pointing.
Yes.
And you're trying to build these huge inflatable hides that sink in the dam. And you've got the old crocodile lurking around. It sort of tends to focus the mind quite a bit. And I loved the challenge of it. I loved the sort of the different dynamics of working in that environment and with people who generally appreciate the surroundings.
Yes, it must have been great kind of working alongside the local community and be, you know, obviously not among, but in close proximity to the wildlife.
Absolutely.
Now, in the past years, the world has seen an alarming increase in the number of cases involving poaching, illegal transportation, and trade of wildlife. As the president for United for Wildlife, the Duke has spent a lot of efforts in mobilizing the international community in order to protect the world's precious wildlife.
The Duke of Cambridge has been the royal patron of Tusk since 2005 and has been a powerful advocate for TUS's work to support conservation, education and community development across Africa ever since.
And at the current pace of illegal poaching, when Charlotte turns 25, the African elephant will be gone from the wild. I'm not prepared to be part of a generation that lets these iconic species disappear from the wild. I'm not prepared to explain to our children why we lost this battle when we had the tools to win it.
Wanting to do more, the Royal Foundation established United for Wildlife. The campaign unites the world's leading wildlife charities and celebrities around the world to a movement that will make a real change for wildlife.
We're in a world where our generation and the younger generation can really make a difference. And we need to do it now.
The Prince has since then travelled to many parts of the world to raise awareness about wildlife crime. Earlier this year, the declaration of the United for Wildlife International Task Force on the transportation of illegal wildlife products was signed by 40 senior representatives from across the transportation sector, including leaders of airlines, shipping firms and custom operators.
In meeting a lot of the communities, what have you witnessed in the efforts to protect wildlife, and what has impressed you the most?
I've been lucky enough to travel a lot down the East African coast. Many of these communities are very poor, but if you have an elephant, if you have a rhino, if you have a pride of lion nearby, the tourists come. And that money that the tourists bring in that community goes straight back into the community.
Yes.
So for water, for education, it's really, really important, and it's a lifeline for these communities that have nothing else to survive upon. So when people who come from miles and miles away come in with an AK-47 and shoot up everything there is, it is effectively burglary, it's robbery, it's stealing the natural heritage of that community.
Yes.
And that's the one area that I think the illegal wildlife trade, when people talk about it, they forget about it. It's the unseen consequences of the illegal wildlife trade, which is really harming and damaging these very vulnerable, very rural communities that rely so heavily on this wildlife.
Now, we understand a lot of people are, taking advantage of the transportation system as a means to illegal wildlife trade, and it is because of this that you set up the Transport Task Force. Can you tell us about this initiative?
The Transportation Task Force was an area of the illegal wildlife trade that we identified as being a weakness that no one had really looked at before. And the private sector particularly, so that's shipping, aviation, they'd never been engaged in trying to tackle the illegal wildlife trade. So we went to them very positively and said, please help us deal with this issue. And I was amazed, some of the airlines particularly really led from the front, even so far as they painted rhinos and elephants on the tail of their airplanes, which actually added benefit to the airline because the children wanted to go on the airplane with the rhino and the elephants
Yes,
on.
exactly. That one looks more interesting than the normal airplane.
So it was very much a case of trying to get a stone rolling as fast as you can and build momentum, and then more companies and more sectors would want to join. And in the end, we got a thing called the Buckingham Palace Declaration signed, which was all the companies and all the sector came together and agreed to a number of commitments to limit the illegal wildlife trade.
Yes, it seems that illegal wildlife trade, this combat against this scourge of humanity, as you have called it, requires the participation of many sectors in society. Why do we need a global campaign for this cause, do you think, as an advocate?
I think it's become such a big issue, and it is so global now that it has to be at that level. you know, people are doing an incredibly important and effective work on the ground in these countries. But to tackle it, because of the distance it's traveling from Africa and effectively to Southeast Asia areas, it goes through so many other countries. It needs a global commitment.
Now, Vietnam has shown a lot of its commitment to protecting wildlife, and one of the proof is the Hanoi Conference on Illegal Wildlife Trade. There, the international community also highly praised what Vietnam has done in order to protect its endangered species and to fight against wildlife crimes.
In the opening speech of the third international conference on the illegal wildlife trade, or IWT, His Royal Highness Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, applauded Vietnam's effort in combating the wildlife trade. He added that this conference highlighted the Vietnamese government's progress and identified ongoing challenges. The Duke emphasized that endangered animals are being killed in horrifying numbers and called for stronger efforts to tackle this.
Their methods on the killing fields of Africa and Asia are more sophisticated than they were 2 years ago. The poachers are learning to be quiet and are much harder to track. The seizures of smuggled ivory at Vietnam's sea and airports in recent weeks are a welcome sign of Vietnam's commitment, but also remind us of the ongoing scale of the trade.
30% of the African elephant population have disappeared in just 7 years. To express determination in cracking down on wildlife crime, Vietnamese authorities on November the 12th destroyed over 2 tons of ivory and 70 kilos of bear and tiger bones, which has been illegally trafficked into the country.
Your first ever destruction of illegally traded ivory and rhino horn at the weekend provides a powerful example ahead of this conference, and we look forward to hearing about the further actions you plan to take.
During the past years, Vietnamese government has shown its determination in this battle to combat wildlife crime.
Việt Nam cũng là quốc gia sớm tham gia các công ước Liên Hiệp Quốc về đa dạng sinh học, công ước về phòng chống tội phạm xuyên quốc gia, về buôn bán quốc tế các loài động vật, thực vật hoang dã nguy cấp, và nhà nước Việt Nam cũng đã ưu tiên thành lập các lực lượng chuyên trách thừa hành pháp luật trong lĩnh vực này. Sự quan tâm này thể hiện trong các cam kết quốc tế, các hiệp định song phương và đa phương, các tuyên bố chung mà Việt Nam tham gia.
Vietnam is not alone in this battle. Many countries, organizations and individuals have joined hands together. At the conference, 46 countries agreed on Hanoi's statement on wildlife crime as part of their common efforts and determination to protect wildlife.
The main reason why you're here is the Hanoi Conference on Illegal Wildlife Trade. What do you think of the efforts of Vietnam in holding such an event?
I think Vietnam should be applauded for holding the conference. It was very brave of the government and very positive and hopeful that they took the time and the effort to put together the conference, because it's got to be difficult at times to, you know, want to be part of the solution when also there's areas that are huge challenges for the country. But you know, it's a case of the evidence that we have in front of us right now indicates that we should all be doing a lot more to fix this. So it's really a case of what's happened in the past is slightly irrelevant. And it's not a case of sitting here and judging previous generations for not doing enough. But the point is, because of all sorts of reasons, we've ended up where we are now. I think it's incredibly important that countries like Vietnam really take leadership and show the commitment and the dedication to tackle an issue that they see as important, but also reflective in the area.
Yes, the point is pushing forward and going towards the future with more positive actions. Now, here in our studio, there are a lot of us representing a lot of the audience watching from home who would like to ask you questions about, you know, how they can contribute to the cause of combating wildlife crime and how the fight is related to their lives. So if you may permit, we would like to welcome some of the questions. Is that okay?
Please.
Yeah. So does anyone have a question for His Royal Highness? Yes? Yes, well, can we start over here with the gentleman in the glasses?
I'm a student at Foreign University, the third year. Your Royal Highness, I have a question for you, which is, you are an advocate for global wildlife protection, right? And if you want to change anything in this world through your role, what would you like to change?
Well, I'd like not to have the role at all, to be honest. Not because of anything else, other than it's sadly necessary. I think if I could change anything, I'd like to get to everybody's house. I'd like to sit down with every single family and talk them through what's going on and update them effectively on some of the issues. Because I do believe that if the message gets out there, people will stop buying the stuff because they'll see the damage, they'll understand the reasons why. And you know, our lives, everyone's lives are full with so many other issues, and there are many other issues out there. I don't pretend that the illegal wildlife trade is the only issue in the world, but it's interconnected with so many other problems, whether it's crime, poverty, corruption, some very big issues in our world. And so I feel that if we can collectively fix this, which it is relatively easy to fix, we just say, stop buying it. You know, it is as simple as that.
Yes, exactly. We do hope you could actually visit some of our houses too, to talk with us. But yes, can we welcome the next question? Anyone else has a question? Yes, over here.
Your Royal Highness, my name is Lanang, and I'm 28 years old, a working mother of an 18-month daughter. And people like us, under 30, are now very aware of wildlife protection. And as being a parent, how can we transfer the love and the passion for wildlife conservation to our children and to the next generation, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. Firstly, I hope your sleep is good with an 18-month-old. Charlotte, who's 18 months as well, my daughter, is starting to sleep well now, so it's all good news. But I think it all starts very young. And many of us would have grown up with the iconic species, the tigers, the elephants, the lions, all as part of stories that we've all read. And it would be incredibly sad if they're not around anymore. Because if in 25 years' time, the trade continues at the pace it's going at the moment, then granddaughters or children will not have the opportunity to see those animals in the wild, and they will just be consigned to the books. So I do think really talking about it, increasing awareness, promoting fun stories is a really important way to engage the next generation.
Thank you very much. One more question, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, as we were just talking about children now, we have a young member here in our audience.
Hello, my name is Maichi. I'm 10 years old. I have a question for you. I really love animals, and I know over the world lots of bad things has happened to them. Sometimes I feel so powerless because I can't do anything. So do you have any advice for me so I could fix the problem that is so much bigger than me?
Oh.
Thank you.
Well, Margie, that's one of the best questions yet by a long way. First of all, it's fantastic you're here and you're interested in hearing some more about the issues. I think your passion and your interest are the most important things here. And the fact that you love and clearly want to learn about it. I think the more you can tell your friends the same, I think the more you can talk to your parents, your grandparents, or your family about what they should and shouldn't do with wildlife. Get them to read more books, get them to understand the issues as well. I think that's really important. But you keep that passion and interest up because it's really important as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Maichi, and everyone for posing your questions. And thank you, Your Royal Highness, for answering. Coming to to Vietnam this time, apart from participating in the Hanoi Conference on illegal wildlife trade, the Duke of Cambridge is also visiting many areas here in the city in order to learn more about Vietnam's commitment to combating wildlife crimes, but also to simply learn more about the lives of the Vietnamese residents here in the capital city.
I'm a little rhino. Last month, my uncle was killed by men who wanted his horn. That made me really sad. Please protect me and my family from rhino horn poachers.
That was a line from the book I'm a Little Rhino that the Duke read with pupils at Hồng Hà Primary School in Hoàn Kiếm District, Hanoi. The Duke's visit helped to inspire young children in wildlife protection.
Sau buổi trò chuyện hôm nay với hoàng tử, con đã biết cách bảo vệ con tê giác. Rhino horn just made of keratin, just like human fingernails. Con mong là mọi người không cưa sừng của nó đi, bởi vì làm như thế sẽ làm hại cho nó và nó rất là đau ạ.
Joining such activity, the Duke has witnessed the effort of raising awareness for wildlife protection through early education in Vietnam. Evidently, through this campaign between Humane Society International, a US-based animal protection organization, and the Vietnamese government.
Việc giúp cho học sinh tiểu học, các em nhỏ có được cái nhận thức, một cái ý thức về việc bảo vệ động vật hoang dã để tạo sau này để tạo một cái thế hệ yêu thiên nhiên và biết cách bảo vệ các động vật hoang dã.
Through our campaign, we've had several outreach and engagement events where we go and visit schools, similar to the one today, and we try to enlist them in our effort to spread the word that rhino horn's no good as medicine and that use and buying of rhino horn is contributing to the extinction of these animals.
According to the Vietnam Association for Oriental Medicine, medicine derived from wild animals like rhino's horn cannot cure cancer, unlike many people believe. At the Herbal Medicine Street of Lan Ông in Hanoi's Old Quarter, the Duke learned some effective traditional prescriptions using only herbal and medicinal plants.
In the traditional medicine, what would this cure?
Những cái rất là bình thường, nó không ảnh hưởng như con sò, con hến ở biển thì nó cũng là vị thuốc người ta vẫn dùng. Chứ còn bây giờ chẳng hạn vấn đề bảo vệ động vật hoang dã, thiên nhiên hoang dã ấy, thì nói chung là Đông y cực rất là nhiệt tình coi như ủng hộ.
United for Wildlife is the message that the Duke shared with Vietnamese artists to promote greater public awareness on the issue. All of these local artists are frontline campaigners for wildlife protection.
To have the prince behind issues, world issues such as this, I think it's such an important thing. And if there's anything that people like us can do, that we should do it, and we have a responsibility to hammer that message through to the public.
Tôi còn bàn với nhạc sĩ Thanh Bùi rằng là chúng tôi cùng sáng tác và thực hiện một bài hát bằng tiếng Việt, bằng âm nhạc và bằng ngôn ngữ Việt Nam để nói với tất cả mọi người Việt Nam rằng là đừng sử dụng sừng tê giác vì nó chẳng có ích gì cho sức khỏe của mình cả, để chúng ta không phải là những người triệt tiêu toàn bộ tê giác hoang dã ở trên thế giới.
I'm now joined by the Duke here in the heart of Hanoi. We're on the Tay Hop Bridge in the Sword or Hoàn Kiếm Lake. And as you've seen, the Duke of Cambridge has been able to meet a number of people across different locations in the city. Now, I'm very curious, Your Royal Highness, how has it been going so far, your trip today?
It's been going really well, thanks. We had a lovely look around the traditional medicine community, and they were very interesting to learn firsthand from the experts. And I was trying to ask them about the awareness of traditional medicine across the wider community, and because obviously traditional medicine and Western medicine are very different. So I was trying to understand culturally and socially how much traditional medicine is important in places like Vietnam. And I had a little walk down the high street, and I felt like buying a few things in the shops and desperately getting on a motorbike. There are a lot of bikes around. I love my bikes, so I've had a lovely introduction to Hanoi.
Yes, what can we as individuals here in Vietnam contribute to the combating against wildlife crimes here in the country and the world?
In a world that is much more connected by social media and everything else,
I do feel we can really learn and educate, particularly the younger generation, to inform the older generation, their grandparents or parents, about the effects of using wildlife products and the damage that it can have, not just to the animal itself, but to the global community and to these very vulnerable communities in some cases in Africa. If the young would join with me and be global leaders for conservation and really champion this cause.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Royal Highness.
As the young lad, Prince William knew that every trip he took must be vocational and purposeful. This is what brought him 8,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean to Chile for Operation Raleigh. This was a voluntary aid mission where he took part in community projects and enjoyed a taste of normality.
William's like one of the lads, like he gets involved with everyone. Really friendly. He's like a lad, you know what I mean? You just have a laugh with him.
And he walks out of this competition, head held low, not very happy.
He was just like a good friend.
Prince or not, William had to take part in daily activities like everyone else, including cleaning the loo. Growing up and following the footsteps of fathers before him, he became a serviceman. It all began at the Sandhurst Academy, then the Royal Army and finally the Royal Air Force. Here he became a search and rescue helicopter pilot.
When I spotted that it was Prince William, immediately it was shock. And slight disbelief. I kept having a little peep to see whether it really was. And though he was also being discreet, you could tell that it was Prince William.
The Duke of Cambridge was able to rescue many victims and flew the rescue helicopter for a total of 1,301 flying hours.
You seem to be very busy with your work promoting wildlife protection and the fight against illegal wildlife trade. Can you please share with us your other job? I believe you're now working for the East Anglia Air Ambulance.
Yes, I'm a pilot with them, and we fly critical care paramedics, critical care doctors to emergency scenes as quickly as they happen. So when someone's very badly injured, we effectively fly a hospital to the patient, so that you're dealing with the casualty within the golden hour, which is the first hour that they're injured, and it increases their chances of making a full survival by getting them to them that quickly. I love flying. It's been a passion of mine for a long time, and when I was in the military, I did a lot of flying for the search and rescue there, so it's sort of a progression on from there, and I quite enjoy the medical side now as well. There's a little bit of a pent-up doctor inside me. I'm desperate to do that side as well, so it combines both my passions.
What has been one of your most memorable experience doing this job?
There's one story I can tell you about where it was a boy who's, I say boy, he's a teenager. He's about 24, 23, and he was driving with his uncle, and very sadly had a head-on collision with a lorry. And the van pretty much disappeared under the front of the lorry. You couldn't see much of it at all. He's very badly injured. Sadly, his uncle didn't survive. Because of the fact that the crew, we all got there very fast, and we had two fantastic medical crew on the day, they basically performed a life-saving operation on him and stabilised him very quickly, got him to hospital, and I was very pleased to hear a few months later that he was well, and I've now found out subsequently it's taken him over a year of recovery, but he's made a full recovery, which shows the importance of what those guys do.
And I'm sure for you that must be very meaningful as well, being able to contribute to that.
It is, and it's really important to do a meaningful job and feel worthwhile that you're contributing.
On July 22nd, 2013, the first child of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge was born at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London.
He's got a good pair of lungs on him, that's for sure. He's a big boy, he's quite heavy, but we're still working on a name, so we'll have that as soon as we can. But it's the first time we've seen him really, so having a proper chance to catch up.
Very emotional. It's such a special time. I think any parent, I think, probably sort of know what this feeling feels like. So
very special.
Duke and Duchess of Cambridge named their child George Alexander Lewis. He's formerly known as Prince George of Cambridge. On the 2nd of May 2015, also at St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London, the second child of the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge was born.
I feel a huge amount of protection and a real protective instinct. More so now, probably now I'm a father, than I do.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge announced they would name the child Charlotte Elizabeth Diana.
Oh, how's that? Give her a stroke first. Give her a stroke and you come on.
One of your roles in recent years, at least from 2013, is being a father to Prince George and Princess Charlotte. Can you please share with us about this role?
Well, as the other parents in the room will testify, there's wonderful highs and there's wonderful lows. No, it's been quite a change for me personally. I'm very lucky in the supports I have from Catherine. She's an amazing mother and a fantastic wife. But I've struggled at times. The alteration from being a single independent man to going into marriage and then having children is life-changing. And I adore my children very much, and I've learnt a lot about myself and about a family just from having my own children. It's amazing how much you pick up from just in those moments.
Yes.
But George is a right little rascal sometimes. It keeps me on my toes. But he's a sweet boy, and Charlotte is well. Bear in mind, I haven't had a sister, so having a daughter is a very different dynamic. So I'm learning about you know, having a daughter, having a girl in the family. But no, it's wonderful. It's fantastic, and you've got to make the time for the family. It's very
exactly.
important.
With the time for the family, what are some of the hobbies that you still hopefully have some time for?
So what hobbies I still do? So I still occasionally ride my motorbike. Quite like my bike a lot. I love being outside with my dog. Lupo is a spaniel. He needs a lot of walking.
Lupo.
Yeah. He's very busy as a spaniel. They don't stop moving around. Their tail is constantly wagging as they're going around.
If I may ask about the motorbike, you know, being a motorbike enthusiast, how is it coming to Vietnam, seeing so many motorbikes?
I know. I literally wanted to get on one. I said to the security team, I was like, why aren't we going around on bikes? I was like, I'm desperate to get on a motorbike.
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time, exactly. But no, I still enjoy doing that, and I still play a bit of football.
Yes.
I'm getting a bit old for it now, but I still try and go play football, go for a run. I enjoy skiing. I still enjoy doing that. So sports particularly, I still enjoy.
For our football fans here in Vietnam, Vietnam is a big football fan country. Who is one of your favorite teams, if we may ask?
I only have one favorite team.
Yes.
That's Aston Villa.
Aston Villa.
Yeah.
So people out there, if your team is Aston Villa, you share the same favorite team with the Duke.
Definitely.
Yes.
Best team in the world.
With your children, we've seen images of your children, like yourself when you were younger, having this first exposure to wildlife, meeting wombat. We saw images of Prince George meeting a bilby in Australia, very adorable, and Princess Charlotte also meeting a rabbit. Can you please share with us, is wildlife, love for wildlife, something that you hope to instill in your children?
Absolutely. I think it's just it's natural as they grow up. They're interested in it, and I think it's treating wildlife with respect. I think as well. It's that plus the greater natural heritage, the environmental piece. So it's about all the natural world, not just about the wildlife. It's sort of the greater understanding that the planet is here for us and we have to look after it. It supports us, we support it. It's a kind of a symbiotic relationship, and I do strongly believe that there are many things out in the world at the moment that we still don't even know about. I mean, most of the ocean, for instance, the deep ocean, hasn't been explored. We don't know what's down there. It's quite exciting. I think more people have been on the moon than to the bottom of the oceans.
True.
So there's a whole world out there that we still don't know, and I just hope we don't collectively as a world destroy some of these things before we've had a chance to find it.
Yes. Do you think having children has given you more motivation in your own cause? I mean, obviously the passion for wildlife protection has always been there, but with your children, do you find that motivation has gotten stronger?
I think what has got stronger is it's changed my outlook a little bit. I'm a lot more emotional than I used to be about things, so I mind a lot more now. Whereas before, I could kind of put it to one side and maybe come back to it later. Now I feel I can't put it down, and it sort of constantly gnaws at me. I worry about the future more. Now, when you have something or someone in your life to give in the future too, I think it focuses the mind more about what you're giving them, and are you happy that you've done all you can to leave it in a good state.
Yes, talking about giving to your children, what other legacies would you like to leave to your children?
I'd like them to grow up with more simple aspirations. I think there's a lot of huge aspirations and people living with an enormous amount of stuff that they don't necessarily need.
Yes.
And so the materialism of the world I find quite tricky sometimes. And I would like George and Charlotte to grow up being a little bit more simple in their approach and their outlook, and just looking after those around them and treating others as they would like to be treated themselves.
Now you are here on this 2-day trip to Vietnam. What is your message to the people of Vietnam?
Please can I come back? Is one of them. It's too quick.
We welcome you.
It's too quick. 2 days is too fast. No, I've really enjoyed the 2 days here, and I see why all my friends have been raving about Vietnam for many years. I'd love to do some traveling, proper traveling, exploring around this region. I think the optimism, the creativity, and the brilliance of some of the young minds I met the other night, I think if I can echo that for the future, I think it's really important that there's that hope and opportunity available to as many young Vietnamese as want it.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, for coming here to Vietnam and sharing your stories. And we do hope to welcome you, along with the Duchess and Prince George and Princess Charlotte, to our country again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And that wraps up this edition of Talk Vietnam with His Royal Highness Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge. We do hope you have enjoyed this edition and learned more about his passion and also encouraging your own passion in wildlife protection. Thank you very much for joining us here in this edition, and until next time here on Talk Vietnam. Goodbye for now.